Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Shalom and good evening, peace and blessings. Shalom and barakut to you and your entire house, wherever you are listening under the sound of Yahuwah's voice being spoken through me across this flat plain earth. Shalom to you, peace and blessings. Shalom and barakut to all of you, to the whole house of Yashar'al, all 12 tribes, worldwide, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this evening, while you sit here live or while you listen later on perhaps to the voice of the Master being spoken through his humble servant. Shalom and good evening to the elder brother Yehuda. Shalom and good evening to the younger brother Ephraim. Shabbat shalom to the former stranger, to the former foreigner, to the former Gentile, who was formerly estranged from the everlasting covenant, formerly estranged from citizenship of Yashar'al, but having received the Ruach of adoption, the Ruach HaKadosh, the Ruach of Yahushua HaMashiach, and whereby having been engrafted into the olive tree, who is Yashar'al, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, and whereby now becoming privy to the same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yashar'al and to Yashar'al alone. Shalom and good evening, peace and blessings. Shalom and barakut to you and your entire house, wherever you are listening across this flat plain earth to the Master's voice being spoken through this dirt vessel. Shalom to you. Shalom, Barak Yahuwah, and peace and blessings, and shalom and barakut to you and your entire house. If you are perhaps those of you who are on YouTube, and this is perhaps your first time listening in to Yahuwah's Remnant, and you are asking yourself, who is or what is Yahuwah's Remnant? Well, we will begin by telling you what and who we are not. We're not some church. No, we're not some church with even just a cursory search, which means a quick search of the word church. In the etymology of the word church, you will find the name or word, whichever you prefer, of Kirky, sometimes pronounced Circe. Who is Kirky? Kirky is known in Greek mythology as the Greek goddess of sorcery and wine. She is known for getting men drunk and turning them into abominable, unclean things. She is known for turning them into pigs. It is no coincidence that you find this word, this name in the etymology of the word church. Not to mention, when William Tinsdale, who was the first to translate the Hebrew scriptures, who was the first to translate the New Testament, what some call the New Testament, but which is more accurately the Brit Kadashah, better known as the Renewed Covenant. He was the first to translate the New Testament, what you know as the New Testament, into English from the Greek in the Hebrew text. There, while translating the scriptures, he found the word in the Hebrew scriptures, and this word is kahal. In the Greek text, he found the word ecclesia. He properly and astutely translated both of these words into assembly as opposed to church or kirky. For his astute observance, the Roman Catholic Kirky tied this man to a stake, strangled him to death, and burned his body because they did not want this secret to be known. They did not want to take the false power from the church and alert men that the church is false, that there has always been one assembly, one kahal, one ecclesia. We're not some church. Moreover, there in the 17th chapter of Revelation, you find the church, you find the Kirky again, they're mentioned. There, she is called Babal the Great. She is called the Great Whore. There, it is said that all the sovereigns of the earth are drunk with her sorcery and her wine. There, it says that this whore, this great whore, this Kirky, this witch, this sorceress, has her tentacles in every nation. It says there that she has her tentacles in many waters. This great whore Babel the Great, the Kirke, the church there is described as this woman who sits on 7 hills. She rides a beast and she sits on 7 hills. This beast is the 4th beast. The 4th beast is described by Daniel as Rome, the 4th beast that will last until the end. There it says that she sits on 7 hills, where indeed Rome was founded on 7 hills. Yes, she was. Rome was founded on 7 hills. Who is Rome? Rome is the progenitor of the Kirke, of the church. You see, the church doesn't teach men to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, thus causing men to be just as unclean and as abominable as the unclean thing that they are touching. No, we're not some church. We're not some 501(c) organization. We're not some camp, and we're not some ministry. We simply are who we are, and that is Yahuwah's remnant ecclesia, his remnant kahal, his remnant assembly, of which he is gathering in this end time season, in this consummation of the times, at this appointed time, a time unlike no other, a time unlike the earth will ever see again, of which he is gathering his people from the 4 corners of this flat plain earth, sealing us with the seal of the living Elohim, writing his name upon our forehead, calling us his temple, calling us his dwelling place, bringing us out of the nations, out of darkness, into his marvelous light, behind the confines of his fence. Indeed, this is where sheep belong, behind the safety of the confines of a fence, being watched over carefully by a shepherd. A point of safety, if you will, a point of embarkation, if you will, waiting for the Ark of the Covenant to arrive, waiting to embark on board the Ark of the Covenant, which is soon to come, to gather his remnant people, to gather his remnant assembly, and to bring us to his Kadush mountain. Well, there we will be given a song that no one else can sing. This is who we are. This is who we are. And if you have been stirred, perhaps, by the Master's words, by the Ruach of truth, this night or on other occasions, if you have been stirred and you have a desire to fellowship with us live, either during our 4th day gatherings or our midweek gatherings, or otherwise what man called Wednesday, or during our Shabbat gatherings, once this teaching, this message, this proclamation has been uploaded to YouTube, there in the description box of this video, you will find an email address. If you have a desire to fellowship with us live, or even if you have just a desire to say shalom to my Aisha and I, please send us an email. We would love to hear from you. We really, truly would. We would really love to hear from you. Nevertheless, this is who we are. This is what we are, and this is who we are. And this is Yahuwah's Remnant Midweek Gathering. And I am Dawood Ban Yahuwah. And this is my Aisha, what you may know as wife, Ashayah.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. I love to hear your voice.
Barak Yahuwah.
Shalom and good evening. Peace and blessings. Shalom and barak to you and your entire house, wherever you are across this flat plain earth, listening under the sound of the Master's voice being spoken through this dirt vessel. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. There is a word. There is a word this evening for the Master's remnant people. There is a word for his remnant kahal, for his remnant ecclesia, which he has line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, shown us that this covenant people, that this remnant people is none other than the elder son, the elder daughter, who is to be given in marriage first, who is to be joined to the bridegroom first, as the younger is never given before the elder. Genesis chapter 29. This covenant people is the house of Yahudah. This is the house of Yahudah, of which the scriptures has declared that there will be a number of 144,000 Yahudim, whom the Master comes to gather, to allow them to escape the hour of trial that is soon to come upon this earth. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, the Master has made this clear. So we're not going to revisit that if you have a desire to understand where it is that the Master has us, Yahuwah's remnant, in this season, I encourage you to start back at least searching for the Ancient Path Part 54 and work your way up so that you have an understanding as to what thus says Yahuwah to his remnant people, to his remnant assembly in this season, which again is the house of Yahudah, which has never been divorced from covenant from the Master. Although acting unrighteously and although acting in whoredom against our Master, Yahudah was never divorced. Ephraim, however, on the contrary, was divorced from the covenant in the year 722 BCE and scattered amongst the nations, where, in accordance with Genesis, the 48th chapter, Ephraim has now become the completeness of the nations. He is every nation, tribe, tongue, and people. He, Ephraim and Ephraim, is firstborn. He carries the firstborn blessing. He is the one identified in the book, in the Beshorah of Luke, as the prodigal son who received his inheritance. The firstborn receives the inheritance, who received his inheritance from the father and then went among the nations and squandered all that he had. This is Ephraim. This is Ephraim. He is firstborn. He represents the firstborn son because the firstborn barakah of blessing was passed on to him from his grandfather Yaakov, who was also firstborn, who received this same blessing from his father Ishak, who in turn received this same blessing from his father Abraham. This firstborn blessing, this firstborn barakah, goes all the way back through a long line of firstborns, all the way back to the beginning, to his firstborn son, his only begotten, his Yaqi, the apple of his eye, Adam. This is about the restoration and the reconciliation of all mankind. Thus, Ephraim, who is firstborn, he represents man. He represents mankind. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And because he is the younger son who is still full of folly, who is still walking in the folly of his flesh, as the Torah declares, if we spare the rod, we do not love our son, we do not love our child, that son is an illegitimate son if the father spares the rod. Our master is not our master is a good father. He loves his children, and thus the great distress, or otherwise called YAHUAH'S distress, or what the Christian church knows as the Great Tribulation, Ephraim is destined for it. Yes, he is. He is YAHUAH. He is destined for the great distress because as a whole, since the year 722 BCE, he remains divorced from covenant with Yahuwah. Yes, he does. He will not be restored as a whole back to covenant with Yahuwah until after the great distress, where we find in Revelation 7, verses 9 through 17, where every nation, tribe, tongue, and people will come out of the great distress, having washed their robes, having been made ready now to receive the bridegroom. Yes, Ephraim will not be restored to covenant until after the great distress. And so it is important in this time, in this season, in this Muadah, to understand that there are many calling upon the name of Yahuwah. Yes, there are. There are many calling upon the name of Yahusha. There are many calling themselves covenant people. There are many calling themselves Yahudim, but the Master has given us an understanding of what to look for when finding his covenant people. One thing that you will find is that within the house of Yahudah, the scepter shall not pass from him, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. That lawgiver is Levi or Louis. Where you find Yahudah, you will find the true priesthood. You will find the true Kahanah. The seal of a Kahan's office is the anointing. I'm not talking about a mixture of different spices that were poured over Aharon's head. No, the seal of that merely represented the true anointing. Yes, it did. Where you find the kahana, you will find the anointing. Where you find the kahana and the anointing, you will find the dwelling place of Yahuwah Al Shaddai, because he still dwells in the midst of his people. And so it is important that you understand and that you are able to make a distinction between Yehuda and Ephraim or Ephraim, so as to ensure that you are not led into the valley of oh no, where you will declare, oh no, how did I end up here during the great distress? So his covenant people remains the house of Yehuda, in which he has spoken, whether you hear or whether you forbear, or whether you believe. He has spoken to his servant that Yahuda goes first. Yahuda goes first in fulfillment of Zechariah chapter 12, and that the tents of Yahuda will be saved first, so that the comeliness of Dawood will not be diminished. So he has sent me this night with a message for his covenant people, for those who fit the description of a Yahudi, who are walking as Yahudi, and who have been sealed or who are being sealed with the anointing and with the seal of the living Elohim, of whom he's given eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand. You see, his covenant people, his true covenant people, are not consumed with knowledge. We're not consumed with gnosis. We do not worship Apollo, who is a sun god, who is a representation indeed of Nimrod, but ultimately who is Hasatan, from which forbidden knowledge flows. You will find this in Ephraim. You will find it in Ephraim, but amongst his covenant people, we're not consumed with knowledge or gnosis. We do not worship knowledge. We worship Yahuwah and Yahuwah alone, and we know the stake of Yahusha, and we don't know nothing else. We proclaim the stake of Yahusha. We proclaim him. We lift him up, that all men may be drawn unto him. If you're looking for knowledge, if you're looking for gnosis, if you're looking for the deep thing, the deep understanding, then you're in the wrong place. Indeed, there is deep understanding and deep knowledge contained within the Torah, as the Master reveals. But this is not our motivation. Our motivation is salvation. Our motivation is pleasing the Master. There is no shortage of men and women who are proclaiming knowledge. There is no shortage of them who are seeking knowledge. And there is no shortage of them who are leading men astray. Men are drawn to their knowledge, confusing their knowledge with true wisdom. True wisdom, true chokmah, only comes from the Ruach HaKadosh. I know nothing. I have no knowledge. I have no understanding of my own. I am in Mashiach and Mashiach in me. I speak only what my Master gives me to speak to his people. So if you're looking for knowledge, if you're looking for one boasting in his knowledge or proclaiming knowledge as to where you're drawn to him instead of the Master, you're in the wrong place. This is not the way of the Yahudim. Yahusha didn't draw anyone to himself. He always esteemed the Father. The text declares that he lifted up not his voice in the streets. That when he healed, he told them to not make it known to no one, but give esteem to the Father. This is the way of the Yahudim. You need to ensure it is imperative that you know and understand if whether or not you are amongst Yahudim or if you are amongst Ephraim. Your life depends on it. Your very life depends on it, because in this season, he's only sealing 144,000, one in every 325,000 person across this flat plain earth with the seal of the living Elohim, are preserving us and preparing us to escape the hour of trial, Yahuwah's distress, the great tribulation that is knocking at the door. Look around you. Look around you. This world, this earth is in turmoil. It has been and is been. It has been being prepared to receive the man of lawlessness, the man of sin, it has been prepared to receive death, to receive chaos, to receive lawlessness, to receive darkness for years. And we're at the climax of that preparation. He is almost here when Hasatan, who is death himself, will manifest. Hasatan, who is the man of lawlessness, who is darkness himself, who is chaos, will come shortly, and the world will engage in a period of 42.5 months unlike it has ever seen before. Most will die. Most will die. Most, if you've been following the master, most will become ascending offerings. Most of this earth, their flesh will be destroyed, that perhaps their souls will be saved, Ephraim. Most of you who are gathered around, all who are gathered around the throne, who is Ephraim in Revelation 7, their flesh has been destroyed. No one shall see the master and live. That's not flesh and blood gathered around the throne. Those are those who've been slain, who've given up their lives, who've been purged and purified and washed in the fires of the great distress, and having washed their robes and having been made ready to receive their bridegroom. The scriptures declare if those days are not shortened, no flesh will remain. Do not try to figure this out with your intellect. Hear what thus says Yahuwah. Death is coming to this earth soon. Death cometh to this earth. Leave your intellect at the door and hear what thus says Yahuwah if you desire to live. Thus this message now is for his covenant people, for his sheep, because his sheep will hear his voice. And another voice they will not follow. And another voice they will not follow. The master has been previously speaking to us about the command to be an ascending offering. The command, not the suggestion. It is not optional. We must hear the voice of our shepherd, and we must become ascending offerings. All of this flesh must be consumed. As an ascending offering is consumed, as the flesh on the altar of the ascending offering is wholly consumed, a sweet smelling aroma to the master's nostril, and as the smoke ascends, representative of ruach, representative of breath, as the life of man is like a vapor which lasts but a moment and then vanishes away. The smoke is a representation of the vapor, of the breath, of the ruach of man ascending to him from whence it came. The flesh being destroyed, consumed on the consuming fire of the altar that is given to consume all sin. It is a representation of the eternal lake of fire, in which throughout eternity, all those who refuse to hear the master's words will be an ascending offering, a sweet smoke into his nostrils throughout eternity. The ascending offering is not optional. It is according to Torah. And the ascending offering was given because of sin, because of the transgression of man. Because of the transgression of man, the ascending offering was given as a commandment and not an option, that we must become an ascending offering. We must become a whole burnt offering. This flesh must be wholly consumed, and the sin within it must be wholly consumed. And we must walk as continual offerings unto the master, pouring out all of our beings unto him and unto one another, being a continual offering unto him, a sweet smoke into his nostrils. The master has made this abundantly clear. He has made this abundantly clear. So we're not going to revisit that, and we're not going to recap that. I encourage you, if this is your first time listening via YouTube, to go back. I'm not sure where it began at, but you're going to have to go back a ways. Perhaps 5 or 6 weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, to go back to the beginning of when the master first began speaking of the ascending offering. He's going to speak again tonight of the ascending offering, but he's going to show us a different aspect now. of the ascending offering. He's going to show us a different aspect. Previously in his word, it says that no one born of Elohim commits sin, for it is impossible for him to commit sin because his seed stays in him. The seed, which is Nun, which is the sun, the Hebrew letter again, Nun. It means, as each Hebrew letter is represented by something. Nun is represented by seed. It is represented by air. It is represented by inheritance. So when it says seed here, we're talking about the Son. We're talking about Yahushua HaMashiach. We're talking about the Ruach HaKodesh. The Ruach HaKodesh remains in us, who is a consuming fire, who consumes the flesh of sin, and allows us to walk the path of righteousness. So it says there, no one born of the Master, no one born of Yahuwah commits sin. No one born of Yahuwah commits sin. But Yahuwah wants to take us on a different journey tonight. He wants to take us on a different journey on this ancient path, not a Christian journey. I pray that you hear and that you'll understand and that your heart is prepared to hear what thus says Yahuwah. This is not Christian doctrine. These are not Christian messages. These are not Christian messages. These messages are intended to save our lives. I say our lives. Our lives. I'm merely a vessel. I'm merely a vessel that he speaks through. As a vessel, as a water vessel, has no control over what its master pours into him, pours into it. I am the same way. I have no control over what the master pours into me and what he pours out of me. But when he pours out of me, the words are for both me and you. Therefore, all of us, as he tries to save our lives. As he tries to save our lives. And so if you are listening this night, Yahudah, if you are listening this night, the title of this message is Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 105. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 105. Hear him. Hear him. Correction is love. Correction is love. Burnt offerings are not instantly consumed. Burnt offerings are not instantly consumed. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 105. Correction is love. Burnt offerings are not instantly consumed. Going back a brief recap again to the very beginning, because this is the ancient path. We must go back to the very beginning to gain an understanding. We must go back to the very beginning. After man was created, after Yahuwah reached down into the soil and breathed and planted a seed in the soil. Yes, he did. The same seed you find in 1 John chapter 3. He planted a seed in the soil, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, breathing the breath of lives into man. Man became a living being. He became a fruit-bearing tree. There in Genesis chapter 1, when he creates man on the 6th day, and he gives commandment to man, the first commandment to both man and beast, to be fruitful and to multiply and to subdue the earth. Next, here in chapter 2 of Genesis, we find man, both man and woman, are now placed in the garden. Firstly, we find man placed in the garden, and a command was given to man, and that command was, of every tree of the garden you may partake of, except of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For the day in which you partake of that tree is the day that you shall surely die. In the day that you partake of that tree, an ascending offering is required. A whole burnt offering is required. None of you is to be left, man. None of you, because nothing unclean can stand in the presence of Yahuwah. And so the day that you sin, you die, you become an ascending offering. A whole burnt offering. All of you is consumed. All of you is consumed. This command was given to Adam. It was given to him. It was also given to Kua from her husband, Adam. So they both had no excuse, but it was given to Adam first, the head. And thus man did not fall until man, Adam, partook of the fruit. It says furthermore there that wherefore after he had taken Kua from Adam's side, that wherefore now man, this as she was brought to Adam, that he said, this is now flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. And it's written there that wherefore man shall leave his mother and father's house, and he shall be joined to his wife, he shall cleave unto her, and the two shall become one flesh. It says there at the end of that chapter, and the two were both naked, and they knew it not. And they knew it not. Indeed, nakedness is seen as uncleanness. Nakedness is seen as crime. Nakedness is seen as impurity. It is the Torah, the light of the Torah, that shines the darkness on nakedness, that shines the darkness, shines the light on dark places. And so because they had not yet transgressed Torah, indeed there was no nakedness revealed. Genesis 3, however, gives a different account there, where we find now the serpent, speaking here to Kua. Understand something. The master's going to speak in further explanation of what's getting ready to happen here. But understand something. The adversary, the devil, who is called the great serpent, he is inhabiting here the body of a serpent. Yes, he is. He is inhabiting the body of a serpent. Reading the forgotten books of Adam and Kua, or the forgotten books of Eden, or the first and second book of Adam and Kua, dependent upon whether you buy it from other source or from the Sefer, he is described as the most beautiful and the most crafty animal in the garden. Yes, he is. He is described, the serpent, this creation, the serpent is described as the most crafty and the most beautiful animal in the garden. He's sly. He's a sly creature. He's crafty. He is sneaky, for lack of a better term. He was sneaky, and I say this because there had to be room in him in order for the adversary to enter. Going back to ascending offering, if you don't give all, then you leave room for the adversary to come in. And so there was room. This place, this garden of Adon, the very bright nature of Yahuwah rested upon it. There was no room for darkness. There was no darkness. And the only way for the adversary to come in, there had to be a door. His door was the serpent. His door was the serpent, who is described as the most beautiful creature in the garden, the most eloquent creature in the garden, and the most crafty of the creatures in the garden. And thus, Hasatan, who is described as the serpent, understand something furthermore. Understand something further. It is written in many circles that seraphim are the highest form of messenger, of which men call angels. Seraphim are the highest form of messenger, the highest rank of messenger. They are described as being as fiery serpents. They are described as being fiery serpents. It is possible, and I believe as much, that Hasatan was a seraphim, thus being called the grand old serpent. I believe that he was a seraphim before being cast down from the mountain of Yahuwah. This will make sense. This will make sense. So Kua was convinced by the serpent of whom Hasatan inhabited to partake of the fruit. He was sly. He was sly, and the one inhabiting him was also very sly. And she was tricked into partaking of the fruit. She then, in turn, convinced her husband to partake of the fruit. Thus, death entered upon their heads. Death entered upon their heads and upon all their seed. Now an ascending offering is required, because the master proclaimed this in his Torah from the very beginning. In the day that you partake of it, is the day that you will die. It's the day that a whole burnt offering, all of you, is to be consumed. All sin is to be consumed on the day that you partake of the fruit. Here now is the love of the Master, where correction is love, and where whole burnt offerings are not instantly consumed. Although it was commanded that they were to become ascending offerings, and they did, they did become ascending offerings. What you must understand, that even with the Ruach, the Spirit of the Master, even with him in us, there is a correction process. All our days, we are to be corrected. All of our days, and because he loves us, he corrects us. He corrects us, and because he loves us, the ascending offering that he has made us is not instantly consumed. In other words, all of the sin that is in the flesh doesn't instantly leave. He convicts you. He chastises you of what displeases him in your flesh. And when he chastises you, that part of the flesh, as it is being burned and turned so that all of it is consumed, that part of it is consumed at that moment. Adam and Eve did not die, were not instantly consumed at that very moment. They did indeed die later on that day. A day to Yahuwah is not a day to Yahuwah is 1,000 years, and they both lived to be 930 years old. They died later on in the evening of that day, the evening darkness being a representation of night. But they did not die at that very moment. No, they did not die at that very moment, but they were corrected. They were corrected so that they would bear fruit. They were corrected so that little by little the ascending offering would be consumed. The sin in the body would be consumed little by little through correction. 930 years through correction. What did he say? What did he do to them? Because, serpent, you have done this, and this is where it's going to make sense. Because, serpent, you have done this. On your belly you shall lick the dust all the days of your life, and on your belly you shall crawl, and you shall bruise the heel of man, and he shall crush your head. He shall crush your head. It is interesting that Yasharal is called his Shabbat, his scepter, his punishing rod, his rod of which he punishes, his rod of which he wars with, his rod of which he corrects with, and his walking stick of which he walks to and fro in the earth. The word Shabbat, the Hebrew or Abarit word Shabbat, is comprised of the Hebrew letters Shin, Ba'it, and Taut. Shin, Ba'it, and Taut. It's interesting there that the Taut, which is transliterated as the letter T, it represents a serpent or a serpent's coil. It represents a serpent's coil. And thus through his people, Yasharal, he is using his people, in which the Mashiach came through his people to bruise the head of the serpent as his Shabbat. As his Shabbat. But he said, now you're going to crawl on your belly all the days of your life. Now, I said this, the Master said this so that you have the understanding that every serpent that you see crawling on the soil is not the devil. Every serpent you see is not Hasatan, it's not the devil. He entered that serpent, and that serpent had a choice. And because he chose to obey the serpent, he was corrected. Do you understand? He was corrected now. And now on your belly you shall crawl all the days of your life, and you shall lick the dust. But now do you understand that Yahuwah makes nothing in vain? Because there in the millennial reign it is declared that children will sit down by Adam's hole and put their hands in Adam's hole and won't be harmed. He makes nothing in vain. And at this time, the grand old serpent, who I believe is a seraphim, will be locked up in the pit for 1,000 years. Get the understanding. We're talking about how correction is love. How the burnt offering, the ascending offering, is not consumed instantly. He corrects us. He corrects us in the correction process. as we are being corrected, we must be correctable. We must be correctable. If we are not correctable, we will die. In fact, the master, he spoke these words. He spoke these words to us just this day. If he does not correct us, we will die. We will die. So he corrects us out of love, and he corrected even the serpent who allowed the adversary to enter him. Next he says, woman, because you have done this. Now here's correction. Here's correction so that they don't become a whole burnt offering instantly and die. They did die that same day, but later on in the evening. But he says, woman, because you have done what you've done, and pain shalt thou bring forth children, and your desire shall be for your husband, and he does rule over you. This is the correction, woman. And this correction still stands. It will stand for 7 whole days, until the completion of 7 whole days. And so if you are not adhering to the correction, you are not correctable. And he corrects to save our lives. He corrects to save our lives. Next he says, man, because you have done this. Here's the correction. Here's the love. Man, because you have done this, by the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread, and you shall work the soil through thorn and thistles shall you work the soil and work it and earn your bread until you die, until you return to the dirt. For from dirt you came, and from dirt you shall return. This is the correction. And correction is love. And for 930 years, less than one day, and they died that same day, but not that very moment, he corrected them. He corrected them so that they would not eternally die. And they have not eternally died. He kept their promise. And so the title of this teaching again is Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 105. Correction is love. Correction is love. The ascending offering is not consumed instantly. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Correction is love. The burnt offering, the ascending offering, is not consumed instantly. Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4, Bereshit chapter 4. Going back, staying in the very beginning. We've read this passage here for the past 2 weeks, but we're going to read it now and allow the master to show us something different about it. Bereshit chapter 4, Genesis chapter 4. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 4, beginning now at verse 1. Read, little one.
And Adam knew Kua his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gained a man, Yahuwah. And again she gave birth to his brother Habal. And Habal became a keeper of sheep.
And Habal became a keeper of sheep, read.
But Cain became a tiller of the ground. And it came to be in the course of time that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Yahuwah. And Habal also brought of the firstborn of his flock and their fat. And Yahuwah looked to Habal and his offering, but he did not look to Cain and his offering. And Cain was very wroth, and his face fell. And Yahuwah said to Cain, why is he wroth towards you? And why is your face fallen? Is it not if you do good?
Is it not if you do good? Read.
You are to be accepted.
You are to be accepted.
And if you do not do good,
and if you do not do good,
towards the door is a sin.
Towards the door is a sin.
He is lying.
He is lying. Hasatan is lying.
And towards you is his desire.
And towards you is his desire.
And you must rule over him.
And you must rule over him. Thank you, little one. Rak Yahuwah. And you must rule over him. Now, just a brief recap. We understand now the meaning of the ascending offering, how in the very beginning, because the command is given for death for an ascending offering, so that you, man, are not instantly consumed, so that I don't instantly consume your flesh, because the command is gone forth, and it must be satisfied. The judgment must be satisfied, so that I don't instantly consume your flesh, man. I am giving you the firstborn of the flock and of the herd, to offer their flesh as an ascending offering in your stead. Also, man, because this firstborn of the flock, not only do they represent you, but hear him, they represent you, man, in your fallen animalistic state. But I also require from you, man, the first fruit from the soil. As you, Adam, were the first fruit from the soil. This represents you, so I require for you to bring me the first fruit from the soil and offer it unto me, so that I do not instantly consume you. And you must do this until Yeshua, which is salvation, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, comes. Cain, as we read here, you've gained this understanding, did not bring the first fruit. He did not bring all. He did not bring all, and his face was wroth, and he was saddened because his offering was not accepted, and Habal's was accepted. Habal obeyed the Torah, and he did good. He did righteousness. He brought the ascending offering required, whereas Cain did not. Hear now, even Cain here, even Cain, what comes here? Correction. Correction. Is it not if you do good, Cain? He loved Cain. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And so he sent correction. If you do good, is it not that it will be accepted? If you do good, so he's correcting him now to do good, to do righteousness. Hear him. Not that he was good. We understand that Cain was not good. Not even righteous Habal was good. Not even righteous Habal. Here's understanding. Not even righteous Habal was good. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Do you understand that in order to be called righteous, in order to be considered righteous, then this means now that you will have to have never ever committed sin in your life. Ever. But for all have sinned. All of us have sinned. And so to be called righteous, truly righteous, of our own, we will have to have never ever committed any sin. Do you understand? And thus the ascending offering, it is not instantly consumed. Because he knows how we are made. He remembers how we are made. He understands that we are not righteous, that we wear his righteousness, provided that you do good. Provided that you do righteousness. But doing righteousness, hear him, Pharisee. Doing righteousness does not make you righteous. Doing righteousness does not make you good. There is only one who is good, and we're going to get to this text, and that is the Father. There is only one good, and so he chastises us. He corrects us, and this ascending offering is turned to and fro. It is turned and twisted so that no area misses the fire. When we're first put on the fire, all we get is a singe. There's only a singe. And so we're not instantly consumed. We're not instantly burned. It takes time. It takes time for the ascending offering to become an ascending offering. I pray you're getting this understanding. Get us another precept, little one.
Leviticus 6, 9 through 13.
Leviticus chapter 6.
9 through 13.
Verses 9 through 13. Oikra, Leviticus chapter 6, verses 9 through 13. Leviticus chapter 6, verses 9 through 13. Beginning at verse 9. Come on, read, little one.
Command Aharon and his sons, saying, this is the Torah of the ascending offering.
Listen.
This is the ascending offering because it is burned on the slaughter place all night until morning. All night.
It is not instantly consumed. Do you understand the Torah here? Do you understand the Torah that the ascending offering is you and that it is consumed over a period? All night. As Adam and Kua, they lived until that evening. Of that day of the 1,000th year, they lived until that evening, and that ascending offering was consumed for 930 years. It was not instantly consumed. The ascending offering is to burn all night. all night, but it is not instantly consumed. But you must be correctable. Many will not receive correction. Many do not like to receive correction. This is a death sentence. This is a death sentence. We must be moldable. We must be correctable. And with the Master's correcting us, he is saving our lives. When he sends correction, just obey him. Just do it. Just obey him. He's trying to save our lives. We must be moldable. We must be correctable and understand that the ascending offering is not instantly consumed. It burns all night. It burns all night. Come on, read.
And the fire of the slaughter place is kept burning on it. And the priest shall put on his linen garment and put on his linen trousers on his body, and shall take up the ashes of the ascending offering, which the fire has consumed on the slaughter place, and shall put them beside the slaughter place. And he shall take off his garments and put on other garments, and shall bring the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. And the fire on the slaughter place is kept burning on it. It is not put out. And the priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and arrange the ascending offering on it, and shall burn on it the fat of the shalom offerings. Fire is continually kept burning on the slaughter place. It is not put out. It
is not put out, Barak Yahuwah. So we thank the Master for his patience towards us, and that we're not instantly consumed, and that the ascending offering is not instantly consumed, and so as many times he continues to reveal things to us. He continues to show things about us. He continues to show hidden things about us. He continues to bring things to light, as that's what the Torah does. It exposes darkness. And when he does that, you must be correctable. You must be correctable. If you're not correctable, then you're thinking that you're already righteous, and the Master has already concluded that there are none righteous. To be considered righteous again, this means that we will have to have never committed any crime. There's one righteous, only one who is righteous, and only one who is good. And so we must be corrected. And in the Master correcting us, he is saving our lives. But your ears must be attuned to his correction. And your hearts must be attuned. We must humble ourselves. We must humble ourselves and submit to his correction. He corrects us as ascending offerings. It is not wholly consumed instantly. But if you're outside of this correction process, thinking that you do not need correction, whether it's coming from him or coming from man, you have a death sentence over your head. As he has spoken, he corrects us. If he does not correct us, we will die. We're trying to make it to Mount Zion. He has been proclaiming words through his servant to correct us. To correct us so that the ascending offering, a little bit is burned here, and a little bit is burned here, a leg and a thigh is burned here, a shoulder is consumed here, the head, the kidneys is consumed here. But it is not wholly consumed at the same time. If he did, we'd all die. We'd all die. He must correct us. He must correct us. We're not righteous. There are none righteous. Only he is righteous. To have the attitude to resist correction. To resist correction means is self-righteousness. Because if anyone who does not need correction is righteous. Yahuwah is the only one who does not need correction. So if anyone does not think that they need correction, then they're operating in righteousness, more accurately self-righteousness. And this is a death sentence. This is a death sentence. And to operate in self-righteousness is to operate in a lack of humility. We must be moldable and correctable as we are on this altar as ascending offerings being impaled with the Mashiach. If he reveals something, if he reveals it, we must accept it, and we must allow him to correct us. We must allow him to correct us, because indeed correction is love. The ascending offering is not instantly consumed. Give us another precept, little one.
Hebrews 12, 1 through 13.
Hebrews 12, 1 through 13. We're not going to be long tonight. This is going to Yahuwah willing extend into the Shabbat. Hebrews 13.
12.
Hebrews 12, 1 through 13. Hebrews 12, 1 through 13. Hebrews 12, 1 through 13. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read, little one.
We too, then having so great a cloud of witnesses all around us, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race set before us, looking to the Prince and the Perfecter of our belief, Yahusha, who for the joy that was set before him endured the stake, having despised the shame and sat down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim. For consider him who endured such opposition from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and faint in your lives. You have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin, and you have forgotten the appeal which speaks to you as to sons.
Listen.
My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahuwah, nor faint when you are reproved by him.
Listen, here, listen. To be a son of Elohim, hear him. To be a son of Elohim, you must be born of Elohim, not of flesh and blood, or of the desire of man, but of Elohim, of water and of spirit. Now, we've been talking about the consuming fire of the Ruach HaKodesh. Listen, to be considered his son, you must have received the consuming fire of the Ruach HaKodesh. He is not flesh and blood, he is Ruach. And to become his son or his daughter, you must be born of him, not of flesh, nor of blood, nor of the desire of man, but of Elohim. But here he says, my son, despise not discipline. He's talking about someone born of Ruach. He disciplines those he loves. Correction is love. If he shows you something, if he speaks it to you directly or through one of his servants, you must be correctable. If you are not correctable, then you believe that you're already righteous, and there is none righteous but him. He is the only one without sin. All of us have committed sin. And in order to be truly righteous, we will have to have never, ever, ever sinned before. And so the ascending offering now is it's not instantly consumed. As the fire gets hot and he reveals things in us, we must be correctable and moldable, and we must receive his correction, because he's trying to save our lives. And in this season, it's imperative that we allow ourselves to be corrected by him. Those whom he corrects, he loves. He loves. Those whom he corrects, he loves, and he corrects us to save our lives. The ascending offering is not instantly consumed. Come on, read.
For whom Yahuwah loves, he disciplines.
Yes.
And flogs every son whom he receives.
Yes.
If you endure discipline,
yes,
Elohim is treating you as sons.
Elohim is treating you as son.
For what son is there whom a father does not discipline?
For what son is there? What son is there that the father does not discipline?
But if you are without discipline, of which all have become sharers, then you are illegitimate. And not sons. Moreover, we indeed have fathers of our flesh.
More indeed, we also have fathers of our flesh. Come on.
Disciplining us. And we paid them respect. Come on. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of Ruach?
Shall we not much further be subject to the Father of Ruach? Read.
And live.
Do you understand? He corrects us to save our lives. This is what this has been all about, Yahudah. He corrects us to save our lives. He desires to bring us to Mount Zion. But we must be correctable. The ascending offering, the whole burnt offering, is not instantly consumed. There is correction in the midst. He shows us things about ourselves to correct us so that we will live, so that we will escape the hour of trial. Come on, read.
For they indeed disciplined us for a few days as seemed best to them. But he does it for our profit.
Well, he does it for our profit. For the master says in his Torah, respect, honor thy mother, thy father, and thy mother, so that thy days are long. And in that process as a child, because he's not naturally inclined to honor his mother and his father. Therefore, a good father would not spare the rod upon the back of their child because he loves him or her, so that their days are long or prolonged and they are not consumed. Do you understand? The ascending offering is not instantly consumed. Come on, read.
So that we might share his apartness. And indeed, no discipline seems pleasant at the time.
No discipline seems pleasant at the time.
But grievous.
But grievous.
But afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So strengthen the hands which hang down and the weak knees.
Strengthen the hands that hang down and the weak knees as he disciplines us and corrects us. Read.
And make straight paths for your feet.
And make straight paths for your feet.
Lest the lame be turned aside.
Lest the lame be turned aside.
But instead to be healed.
But instead to be healed. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Discipline from the Father is not comfortable. If you love the Father, if you truly love him and are intertwined with him, when he corrects you and when he disciplines you, I don't know about you, but it takes me a while to recover. It takes me a while to recover. It does something to me because I just hate, I hate disappointing him, and it does something to me. It does. The master, he had to correct his son yesterday. He had to correct me, and it did something to me. It took me a while. It took me until the day to recover. It did. It took me until this day to recover because he had to correct his son because he loves me. And I laid there and I cried and I sobbed, and he said not a word. He said not a word as it hurt me. It hurt me, and it sent me to a place, and it really hurt me. But listen, Yahudah. Listen, I know it hurts. It's reminiscent of a child, a young child, and some of you who were raised in rural areas, who had parents who did not spare the rod. You remember the little switches that we used to have to gather, and they would twist them together. And if you were wearing shorts, you know what I'm talking about. It hurt. It hurt. And if you loved your parents, it hurt just as bad to hurt them. And it took you a while to recover. Maybe a day, as it took me a while to recover. And so I think it was this morning, or it may have been in this 6-hour offering, as I was still maybe just soaking just a little bit, just soaking just a little bit, because my behind had not completely healed, and I just soaking just a little bit. The Father said enough. He said enough. He said, if I did not correct you, you would die. If I did not correct you, you would die. Do you understand, Yahudah? If he does not correct us, we will die. He loves us, so he corrects us, and he sends words of correction through his servant to us. He loves us so that we won't die. He wants us to go to Mount Zion. And so the ascending offering is not instantly consumed. Are you shouting right now? Are you shouting at the love and the patience of our Master, at his great love and loving commitment towards his children? He is lovingly committed towards his lovingly committed ones. He is lovingly committed towards his lovingly committed ones. So he corrects and disciplines those whom he loves, in order so that we will live. So that we will live and not die. And so in this season, as the master has determined and called and said that he spoke this about 6 years ago, going on 7 years now. But he recently added a part to it. About 6 years ago, he said, he spoke to me that this is a season of separation and preparation. Do you see? This was 6 years ago. 6 years ago that he said that this is a season of separation and preparation. And that season continues. But that season is almost done. In fact, we're coming up on the 7-year completion. But 6 years ago, he said that this is a season of separation and preparation. Later on in that season, he said that it was a season of threshing floor anointing. Of threshing floor anointing. Recently, perhaps, perhaps 2 months ago, he added correction. He said correction. And so now we must understand this is a season of separation, preparation, threshing floor anointing, and correction. Correction as he's correcting his people and preparing us to bring us to Mount Zion. Separating us from what? Separating us from sin. Separating us from the unclean thing. Separating us from that which pleases him. From that which displeases him. Separating us from people. Separating us from 7+ billion people who are being separated and reserved for wrath. Separating us unto life. Do you understand? He disciplines, chastises, corrects us so that we will live. The whole burnt offering is not instantly consumed. Correction is love. Correction is love. Come on, give us another precept, little one.
Luke 18:10-27.
Luke chapter 18. Luke chapter 18, verses 10 to 27. How are we looking for time, little one?
106.
Luke chapter 18.
106. Oh, 18:10-27.
Verses 10 to 27. Luke chapter 18, verses 10 through 27. Beginning at verse 10. Read for us, little one.
2 men went up to the Kadesh place to pray.
Hear him. 2 men went up to the Kadesh place to pray. Read.
The one a Pharisee.
The one a Pharisee. Are your Pharisees listening? Read.
And the other a tax collector.
And the other a sinner. Read.
The Pharisee stood and began to pray with himself this way.
This way, read.
Elohim, I thank you that I am not like the rest of these men, swindlers,
listen,
unrighteous,
listen,
adulterers,
listen,
or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week.
Yes.
I give tithes of all that I acquire. But the tax collector, standing at a distance, would not even raise his eyes to the heavens, but was beating his breast, saying, yes, Elohim, show favor unto me.
Show favor unto me.
A sinner.
A sinner.
I say to you, this man went down to his house, declared right.
This one went down to his house, declared right. There are none righteous. There are none good. There are none righteous. This man was declaring himself to be righteous. In order to be righteous, you will have to have had never committed sin before. Going back to Adam. Going all the way back to Adam. Do you understand? We are sinners. It is not, I don't care what good you do. I don't care what Torah you obey. Do you understand that Torah is Yahuwah? That Torah is righteousness. Not yours, not mine. Yahuwah's. When we obey Torah, which is to repent, when we obey the Torah, and we are immersed in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach for the forgiveness of sin, he then clothes us in his righteousness. We have none. We have no righteousness of our own. Even in obedience to Torah, even in doing righteousness, it is his righteousness that we are doing. It is his righteousness. He is Torah. And so in doing Torah, we're doing his righteousness. We have none of our own. He clothes us in his righteousness, provided that the Ruach HaKadosh has come upon you. And you're now called his sons and his daughters. And as his sons and his daughters, we have no righteousness of our own. He clothes us in his righteousness. And he disciplines, reproves, and corrects those whom he loves. The ascending offering is not instantly consumed. He corrects us along the way. in order to save our lives, in order to bring us to Mount Zion, to give us a song that no one else can sing. He corrects us, reproves us, disciplines us in order that we will live. Come on, read.
Declared right rather than the other.
The other was declared right. The one that said, now I have no righteousness of my own. I'm a sinner, master. Yes, I do my best, master, with all my heart, mind, and strength to do righteousness, to be righteous, to obey a Torah. But Torah is your righteousness because you are Torah, and your righteousness covers me. Your blood, the blood of the Lamb, covers me. Thus by the blood of the Lamb, death passes over me. And so here I am, master. Have your way in me. Show me the dark places. Show me, master, what displeases you. I am your son. You are my father. Correct me. I am correctable. I am moldable, Father. I submit to you. I have no righteousness of my own. These go down to the house, the Ba'it. Justified. Declared righteous. Declared righteous. No amount of the obedience of Torah can make us righteous. He determines us to be righteous when he clothes us in his righteousness. And even as sons, being clothed in his righteousness, the ascending offering is not instantly consumed. He corrects us. He corrects us. When you hear his voice, don't harden your heart. Be correctable. Whether that voice is coming through a servant or whether that voice is coming from him directly, be correctable. He's trying to save your life. Come on, read, little one.
For everyone who is exalting himself shall be humbled.
Shall be humble. How are you going to declare yourself to be righteous? This is exalting yourself. This is self-righteousness because we have no righteousness of our own. We are all sinners. Yes, we are. If you've ever committed sin before, you are a sinner. To be truly righteous of your own, you would have to have had never committed sin before. There is none righteous. No, not one. No, not one. We have no righteousness of our own. YAHUAH'S Kanu. He is our righteousness. He clothes us in his righteousness when we aspire to do righteousness. When we aspire to obey his voice, he clothes us in his righteousness. But the ascending offering is still not instantly consumed. He corrects us, proves us, disciplines us along the way to make us along the road to being made like him so that we will live. Come on, read.
And he who is humbling himself shall be exalted.
He who is humbling himself shall be exalted. Come on.
And they also brought infants to him to touch them. Mm-hmm. But his taught one, seeing it, rebuked them. Mm-hmm. But Yahushua called them to him and said, let the little children come to me.
Let the little children come to me. Read.
And do not forbid them. Mm-hmm. For of such is the reign of Elohim. Mm-hmm. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the reign of Elohim as a little child shall certainly not enter into it. Mm-hmm. And a certain ruler asked him, saying.
Listen, and a certain ruler asked him, saying. Read.
Good teacher.
Whoa, good teacher. In other words, righteous teacher, good teacher, righteous teacher. Read.
What shall I do to inherit everlasting life?
What shall I do to inherit everlasting life?
So Yahushua said to him,
listen.
Why do you call me good?
Why do you call me good?
No one is good except one Elohim.
No one is good except one Elohim. Listen, hear him. This is Elohim in flesh, but no flesh shall boast before him. No flesh shall boast before him. So Elohim in flesh here is telling us that the flesh can never boast above the Father. The flesh is not good. Mankind is not good. There is no good thing that dwells in us. There is not one good. There is not one righteous. No, not one. Only he is righteous. And if we are not righteous, then the whole burnt offering cannot be instantly consumed. This flesh must be corrected along the way, molded and shaped and corrected, and we must be moldable. We must be correctable. We must hear the master's voice, and we must submit to him. Correction will save our lives. Correction is love, and it will save our lives. Thank the master that the ascending offering is not instantly consumed, that we are not instantly burned to death, that we are not instantly killed. Come on, read.
You know the commands. Do not commit adultery. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Respect your father and your mother. And he said, all these I have watched over from my youth. And hearing this, Yahushua said to him, yet one you lack. Sell all that you have and distribute to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven. And come follow me. But when he heard this, he became intensely sad, for he was extremely rich. And when Yahushua saw that he had become intensely sad, he said, how hard is it for those who have money to enter into the reign of Elohim? For it is easier for a camel to enter through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter into the reign of Elohim. And those who heard it said, and who is able to be saved? And he said, what is impossible with men is possible with Elohim.
Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Master. Make no mistake. You still must give up all. You still must be that ascending offering that is commanded in the Torah. We must give up all. We must count up the cost, and we must give up all. We must turn from our wickedness and turn back to the righteous Torah. And we must obey the command to become an ascending offering. But in becoming the ascending offering, you now must have this understanding so that you do not become discouraged, so that you do not become dismayed, so that you do not grow weary and well-doing. You must understand that the ascending offering, the whole burnt offering, is not instantly consumed. It is not instantly consumed. There must be correction. And he corrects us so that we will live. What's next, little one?
Romans 3, 1 through 12.
Barak Yahuwah, we're going to stop right here for tonight.
Okay.
We're going to stop right here. We must be correctable, Yahudah. And we have the understanding now about the Torah of the ascending offering. But understand that in reading the Torah of the ascending offering, it burns all night. It is not instantly consumed. Little one, Master gave her an analogy of a rotisserie bird. Barak Yahuwah, being slowly turned, Barak Yahuwah, and a little bit of it being cooked at a time, if you can get the analogy. A little bit of it being cooked at a time. This is a great analogy of how we are to be ascending offerings. If you think you got it together and you don't need correction, you're like the self-righteous man who went down to the house to pray, who did not leave justified. There's none righteous but one, and that is Yahuwah. And this ascending offering, praise the Master, is not instantly consumed. There must be correction. As Adam and Kua were corrected for 930 years, you shall bear children, woman. In pain shalt thou bring forth children. Your desire shall be towards your husband, and he does rule over you. 930 years. Man, because you have done this, from the sweat of your brow shall you work the ground, thorns and thistles, and earn your bread until you return to the ground. For from dust you came, and to dust you return. And through this is the correction. Do you understand? This is the correction. This is the correction. This is the chastisement that was given to them, so that they were not instantly consumed. And through those through that less than a day of 930 years, there were more instructions given to them. I encourage each of you to read the Forgotten Books of Eden, if you have not read it already. Don't let anyone discourage you. It bears witness with Scripture. I believe it is Scripture. I believe it's one of the lost 200 books that Ezra, that you know as Ezra, or more properly called Azra, that he wrote. 200 books that were lost. And many of these books are being discovered even today. But that this is a correction process. And he corrects us and chastises us and proves us so that we will live. So that we will live. And thus, the ascending offering, as we have read in the Torah, is not instantly consumed. Thank you, Master, for your loving commitment and kindness towards your children. Thank you, Master, that you correct us and prove us.
Thank you, Master.
That you discipline us, and prune us so that we will bear more fruit, and so that we will live. You desire to see us and embrace us upon Mount Zion. But we must understand that there are none righteous, no, not one. And just because you've called and you've sealed us with the seal of the living Elohim, we are still but low dirt vessels, and we are still on this altar as ascending offerings, and we must be corrected. You must correct us. And this is the difference. This is that great separation, that greater separation. You're calling on people who are humble, who are sheep, who show humility, who are correctable, who are correctable and who do not and will not operate in self-righteousness, who will submit to your correction, whether it's coming through your servant or from you directly, who will submit to your correction, understanding that correction will save our lives, understanding that the whole burnt offering is not instantly consumed. It is my prayer that you've given your people eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand. It is my prayer that this word, this seed, this night has not been cast by the wayside, that it has not been thrown amongst thorns, that it has not been scattered on shallow soil, but indeed that a hammer, your word has gone forth across this earth this night as a hammer that shatters, causing your people to repent, causing your people to humble themselves and to fall before your face and to declare that I will submit, Master. I am correctable. I will obey your voice, so that you, Master, will plant a seed in a Master. Will plant a seed in the soil of the heart, Master. And so that the living water of the Ruach HaKodesh will come and water that seed such that it will conceive life. And so that that seed will then become a fruit-bearing tree. But as a fruit-bearing tree, Master, that you will come and prune that tree. Prune it, Master, so that it will bear more fruit, that they will understand that just because they have the seal of the living Elohim, that they have your living water, that the ascending offering is still burning. It is still burning, and the correction process is still going forward. Let not your word return void this night, but let it go forth and accomplish that which you have sent it forth to do. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, so be it, so be it. So be it. For those of you on YouTube, once again, we're grateful that you have joined YAHUAH'S Remnant Midweek Gathering this night. If you desire to join us live, either our fourth day gatherings, midweek gatherings, otherwise called Wednesday, or our Shabbat gatherings, once this video, this message, this teaching, this proclamation has been uploaded to YouTube, there in the description box of this video will be an email address. Please use it if you have a desire to fellowship with us. Even if you have no desire to fellowship with us, we would love to hear you just say shalom. Until the next time that we meet, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasharal, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it. Shalom.